To buy or not to buy? That is the question. In fact, that's a question that a lot of people debate online significantly when it comes to anyone posting about buying real estate. You have a lot of people jumping into comments on any video, especially when a realtor posts it, saying that you should get into the market. It's time to buy. You're going to be far better off when you buy real estate. But is that actually the case? Or is there something to the people saying you're better off to stay a renter and instead invest the difference? In today's podcast, we're actually going to debunk this. We are actually going to do a deep dive and run the numbers to see, are you actually better off renting and investing the difference? Or is there something to what those realtors out there are saying about buying real estate? Now, caveat, I am an agent, so I do come with a little bit of a bias, but I'm going to try to remove that and stick to being neutral when it comes to this topic. So bear with me and watch this video to the end to see if you think it's actually a better idea for you to get into the market, or if you still think at the end of the video, yes, I was right, I proved him wrong, it's better to rent. So let's dive right into it. Welcome back to another episode of Manning Up After Dark on the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. And yes, we are addressing the age-old elephant in the room, whether you buy and get yourself into the market, or if it's better to stay a renter and invest the difference. So to do this, we're actually going to break it down using an actual calculator that was designed for this very purpose. You see, one of my colleagues, Kyle Green with the Green Mortgage team, has a public calculator that you can actually take a property, implement the numbers, and take a look if it's better for you to actually buy that home or if there's more advantages for you to actually rent. This is taking the onus off of agents like me and putting it into your hands to say, I was right, I'm going to stay a renter, or maybe, you know what, it is a good idea to look into buying that. So let's dive right into this example. Now to do this, I'm going to pull up a basic first-time entry property that you can get into right now in the market while we're recording this. So what you see here is a copy of an MLS. This is a property that is in the Langley area that is for sale right now. Currently asking $450,000, $449,900. It is a one bedroom, one bath built in 2021, and it's 509 square feet. So this is a very basic entry level property. When we look at the photos here, it's pretty nice. There's not much more that you need in a nice condo to get yourself started in the market if this is what you're looking for, and this is what your budget allows for. So let's take a look at some of the key points. One, price, $450,000. We're going to round up just for ease of numbers. We see here the taxes, $2,756. We're going to go back to that and take a look at it in a bit. And then down here, you see the strata fee is $236. So those are some of the expenses that you're going to have to be paying by owning real estate. So yes, there are additional expenses outside of the mortgage, which of course is going to add up over time. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to take those figures now and we're going to move over to the calculator provided by the Green Mortgage team to see, is it better that we rent this property or should we buy this property, and figure out based on where we're at in our life season, whether we should buy it or rent it. So let's take a look. We have here the calculator right now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start filling it out. Okay, so really simply, let's clear this and do $450,000. Now, interest rate, we're going to keep it about 4.5%. At the time of recording, that's pretty average with what some people are getting out there from a fixed rate perspective. We're not going to jump into the variables. We're going to keep it very stable, very fixed rate, very linear at this point. Amortization of 25 years because we are putting less than 20% down in this case. So we're going to keep it like that. You'll see here, you do not have enough cash on hand because we've only got some stuff filled out here for now. So first and foremost, let's look at some of the payments here. Property taxes. As we look at the previous here, you can see property taxes, $2,700, and we'll round it up $57. So $2,757. The condo maintenance fees, we come back here, it was $237. We'll round that up again just for ease. $237. We're going to do this report annually because we want to look over a longer period of time with this. Okay, now for down payment and closing costs. There are a few things that we have to factor in when it comes to purchasing properties. Now for this example, because we are looking at a property in British Columbia. We're going to use British Columbia closing costs. It's important for you, though, to make sure you take a look at your area, your province, your state, wherever you're watching this from, and figure out what your closing costs are going to be. Now, first and foremost, at $450,000, if we're only putting down a total of 5%, we're looking at about $22,500. We'll start with that, but that's not going to be all of the expenses. The next thing we have here in British Columbia is the government's property transfer tax. That is the you just bought a home, now pay us tax. So for that, it's a really simple calculation. It's 1% of the first $200,000 of the value of a property. Then it's 2% on the remaining value up to $2 million. So and then of course it changes from there and it gets even higher and they gouge even more. But for the purpose of this, it's really simple calculation. The first $200,000, 1%, $2,000. Okay, so we can add 2,000 here, now making this 24,500. The next part of the property transfer tax is 2% on the remaining balance of 255, which is an additional $5,000, putting us at a total of 29,500. Now, in terms of mortgage fees, we're not going to include anything there because we're going traditional financing. We're not going private or anything, so we don't need to worry there. Other closing costs. Well, I can tell you there's going to be a home inspection more than likely. That's going to range you for a condo like this around $450, give or take. There's going to be an appraisal. That's going to be roughly around $350 and an additional $1,500, give or take, for legal fees. So if we take a look at all of those, $450 plus $350 plus $1,500 means an additional $2,300 in closing costs. Now, going through this checklist here, there's no GST or HST. It's not a new build. We are checking off that we're getting mortgage insurance because we are putting less than 20% down. You're going to have an additional mortgage insurance premium, which is going to be added to the total amount loaned and then amortized over the 25 years, giving you a total down payment required of $27,200. We're going to look at this from the perspective of if you're buying that home, you're putting that kind of money down. And at the same token, if you're going to stay a renter, you can take that $27,200 and actually apply it to investments and see how we do over the long term. So let's take a look at it. Rents, taxes, and inflation. So we're going to figure this out. Now, a property like this in this area, I would think you're probably going to pay around $1,800 to $1,900 in rent. So let's go right in the middle and go with $1,850. After tax investment return, let's say you get a really good fund that you're putting your money in. You're very aggressive. You're a very risk taker, especially because you're young, and you get after tax a 7% return on your investment. I mean, that's a pretty spectacular return. And I think a lot of funds aren't necessarily going to do that, but we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You're getting a really good return on your money. We know inflation is going to be happening throughout the years. So let's use a simple formula of about 2.9%. We've seen it lower right now because obviously the government's doing what they can to lower it, but we've also seen it as high as 6-7% in some cases. So 2.9, pretty conservative. And a home appreciation at about 3% is also pretty conservative, considering the national average over a 30-year period is around 6.3%. So we're actually going to cut that in half of the national average just to be super conservative. Future sales commission. Now, again, there's no such thing as a set commission out there. We are going to put a figure in there just for the purposes of calculating this. And we're going to use 4% because here in British Columbia, it tends to be a little lower that most people charge. But again, there's not a guarantee about how much your agent's going to charge. That's between you and them at the time of sale. This is not anything to say this is exactly how much you are paying. So now, while we take a look at this here, we can see our home equity versus the investment. So if you were to stay renting and invest your down payment and the difference between that $1,800 versus your monthly payments of, monthly payments of $2,900, you're going to be earning a total investment after 10 years of $210,348. And that's with an aggressive 7% investment return. Now, if we look at the property over 10 years, your total equity in the home created as you pay down your mortgage and a very conservative 3% appreciation happens on the property, your total investment is going to come to about $288,505. Now, of course, if you are selling that property and you're hiring an agent based on this formula, your total net sale after that is $264,245. So as you can see, over a 10-year period, you've actually done better owning a home. There we go. That is the key thing that everyone is saying when they say it's better off to buy a home from an investment standpoint. However, I am going to take a look now at this point over here. As you can see here, this says your home purchase breaks even at approximately 4.6 years. 4.6 years it takes to actually recoup the money that you put down on this property. So if you're not planning on staying in a property for longer than 4.6 years, then maybe on the other flip side, it is better to stay a renter and to invest the difference as long as you're actually investing it. Most people stay as a renter and they don't actually invest that money. So that's the key part. If you don't want to invest because you don't want to wait 4.6 years to break even, then go and stay a renter, but actually put your money to work for you. It's not until after the 4.6 year mark that suddenly your money is working hard for you. You've recouped your money and now you're actually starting to build a net worth. Now, here's where the breakdown is from the monthly breakdown. Rent payments are about $19.04 when you factor in there's other expenses such as hydro and other stuff, tenant insurance, everything. Your house payment of $2,900. Your initial principal amount in this situation, you're going to be earning about $837 back off of your mortgage in principal reduction, and your net house payments then that you're actually putting out the door, $2,078. However, when you look at what happens when it comes to rent versus owning, there's a reverse effect that's really important for you to know. At the end of the day, in year one, it is cheaper for you to rent the home. However, that will start to change because, again, we're factoring in a simple 2.9% inflation rate. Your rent is going to go up every single year. And as long as you maintain a healthy payments, you'll see that your house payments will actually stay relatively stable. In fact, they'll actually go down a little bit as you get later on in the sales, whereas your rent will continue to go up. So you paying that difference of what you're renting versus what you're owning, over time, that will erode and you're not going to be putting as much into your investments because rents do go up every single year in most situations. So as you can see, when we take a look at this, it all depends on your situation in your life season. If you're looking to only be in a property for 1 or 2 years, maybe it's better to stay renting, go put your money into some investments, earn some interest on that, earn some return, and then look at buying maybe in the future. But if you're someone who knows that you're going to own that property for 5 years plus, then definitely I highly recommend you get yourself into the market because long-term, homeowners will always do better. Now, the one thing that this doesn't talk about, this spreadsheet, is taxes. As someone who's renting and investing that money, you will have to pay taxes on any capital gains that you earn. Whereas if you buy a home and you live in it, there are a lot of tax benefits that you can earn, such as being exempt from capital gains tax if you live in a property more than 2 years here in Canada. So there are many other levels to this that we could go into, but at the end of the day, long term, you will absolutely do better owning a home than renting. And in the short term, maybe it is better to stay renting unless you have a plan on how to hold that home. There's other strategies we could go into, such as buying that home, living in it in 1 or 2 years, turning it into a rental. Then suddenly you have someone else paying down that mortgage. Now suddenly your returns could go so much higher, but we'll save that for an entirely other podcast. But what are your thoughts? Do you still agree? Did I convince you that buying a home maybe is a better choice for you if you have long-term goals? Or are you still on the side of absolutely not, I'm going to stay a renter my whole life and I'm going to invest and make a fortune in the stocks, bonds, crypto, whatever? Drop your comments below, let me know. And like always, if you've liked this video, like, subscribe, do all those things that help the algorithm out, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care.